Celtics Beat, brought to you by PrizePicks.
Hey everyone, welcome in another edition of Celtics Beat. Summer League is behind us, preseason, regular season, maybe even some moves. Not unlike August, Ev, right around the corner. Good to see everyone. With Ev Valenti, I am Adam Kaufman. Brian Barrett is here. Of course, you know him. He hosts the Off the Pike podcast for The Ringer. He is on Twitter at It's Brian Barrett. Maybe it should be It's Bearded Brian Barrett. Bearded for the first time on this program. And Barrett, you told us beforehand, bearded for the first time ever?
Yeah, never had one before. Never tried to grow it out. I had until I grew the beard. The last time I hadn't shaved was December 27th of 2023. I'm an everyday guy. I got to shave the neck, though. I got nothing on the neck. I shave the neck every day, but went with the beard. And I told my producer on my show, Jamie McClellan, I said, you know what? I'm just going to keep this thing going until the Red Sox get above 500. And this is obviously significantly before the 10-game winning streak got underway. I think at the time they were 4 games below. And then they were winning so much. I'm like, I just got to keep it going. And then I just kind of liked it. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to keep the beard. I got a fade last week, and my barber, trimmed it up a little bit for me to make sure it looks good. I usually get my hair cut usually every 2 weeks, sometimes every 3 weeks. So I can do that, get it trimmed up a little bit. I got a little bit of a beard trimmer, but I don't know, man. I'm kind of liking it. I didn't think I would like it. I thought it would annoy me, but it really doesn't. I like it. And it's easy. I mean, I only have to shave my neck every day. Save some time.
First time growing a beard, Ev, and he picked I get why. He just talked about it, the Red Sox, but he picked a New England summer. Bold.
Well, no, what he's doing. He's getting on the playoff beard early. This is just making sure that come playoff time, and this is if the Red Sox somehow make the playoffs, that he's fully ready to go. He doesn't have to worry about trying to grow in the patches and stuff. I appreciate that. As a guy that it took a while for me to grow a beard. Like the best advice I ever got was, there's going to come a point where like you hate the way your face looks. Like give yourself 2 more weeks after that for it to really fill in and then shave. So ever since then, I've always had a beard. Like my beard trimmer, I got on to like a 6 just to clean it up a little bit. The beard is I feel like it's a necessary part of my character and human being. Brian,
Sure.
do you feel any different now that you grow a beard?
Is it part of you now?
I feel wiser.
Yeah, you look wiser for sure.
It's not a playoff beard. It's a beard until the Celtics are contenders again.
Oh, well, that thing, that could be 2 to 3 years from now.
Good. You got to be committed. Doesn't mean you can't trim it. Doesn't have to be like a Stanley Cup playoff kind of beard where the thing just grows. You can keep it clean, keep it, have the barber work on it when you get your fades and all that stuff. But you might need to embrace this new existence you have.
Yeah, I do notice that I don't get carded anymore. Like I went to the liquor store the other day last weekend and I didn't get carded, and I ordinarily get carded. So I do feel a little bit older, which is tough, but we'll make it through.
All it takes for a little more maturity is facial hair, evidently. Fellas, again, it's a funny time of year. Obviously, we can look back and, who impressed us at Summer League and all that stuff. Now that it's done, there have been some stories of note since our last show a week ago, Ev. Marcus Smart, dead to a lot of Celtics fans now. He's a Los Angeles Laker. And I say that, I'm sure there's somebody in the comment section as I say that, I go, screw you, Kaufman, Smart's a Celtic for life, put his number in the rafters, all this. I get it. Like, I love Smart too. I've got the, what is it? In this house, we do not slander Marcus Smart or whoever it goes. I got the block like a lot of people. I got the Smart cereal on my shelf, the box. I like Marcus Smart as much as anybody else. If you've listened to Celtics Beat for a long time, you know that Ev and I, we're in the office. We're in the cabinet of the fan club of Marcus Smart. There is no doubt about it. It's a little different now that he's a Laker, right? It just looks a little different, makes you feel a little bit different. Maybe not about the guy, but about the situation. Like our buddy Seth Landman, who comes on the show from time to time, he had made the comparison. It's not exact, obviously, but he said like Rajon Rondo. He loved him as a Celtic, captain, champion, all that stuff. Goes to the Lakers eventually, and never quite looked at him the same after that. Let's kick it off there just a little. We don't have to go deep into this, even though it is the offseason. What an offseason story. But even still, Barrett, do you care? I mean, Marcus Smart, a few years removed from being a Celtic, he is, he didn't want to leave. He got traded, all that stuff. But do you view him any differently in that uniform?
No, maybe if he hadn't played only 54 games over the past 2 years, and maybe if he was the Marcus Smart from 4 or 5 years ago, I would care a little bit more. And maybe if the Lakers were better. I don't know how you guys feel about the Lakers, but I don't see them as any sort of contenders. The one thing that I completely disagreed with what Marcus Smart said, he said when he returns to the Garden, he thinks he's going to get booed. I'm like, dude, are you kidding me? You're not going to get booed at all when you return to the Garden. If anything, they may make another video montage. Yeah, he'll get a standing ovation. Like, that's not going to happen. Like, it's not like you left under bad circumstances, right? It's not like you're a villain coming back to the Garden, right? Even, and I don't want to get into a whole digression about Ray Allen returning, but people were mad when Ray Allen left, right? Mm-hmm. Marcus Smart was traded. The team decided to move on for Marcus, and clearly it was the right move. It's crazy that Porzingis actually played more games than him. Not that Porzingis was the healthiest guy, but just the reality of the situation was you probably needed to get Smart out of the room to win the championship. I don't think it was great for a first-year head coach to have Marcus Smart where it's like, that guy Derek White's actually better. He should be in at the end of the game instead of Marcus Smart, which was happening over and over again. It was a topic that we brought up. But at this point, he's playing for a team that, are they close to Oklahoma City, even a team like the Rockets or Denver? So it's not like he went to a great situation where he has. I'm hoping that he can get back to somewhat of what he used to be, because you look at his body, he doesn't look the same anymore. Maybe he's rejuvenated. He's dealt with all these weird injuries, but it wasn't a big deal to me. I was more upset that the Lakers got gifted Luka Doncic, who has nothing to do with the Celtics compared to Marcus.
I was just looking at while Barrett was talking, just to pick a book, have it up here. FanDuel Sportsbook odds, NBA champion right now. The Lakers have the 7th best odds at 17-1. They are 4th in the Western Conference behind the Thunder, the Nuggets, the Rockets. And I just think that is so wildly mispriced. It's such a Lakers, market price to people buying in on whatever's left in LeBron's tank. Obviously, Luka being like, after those two guys, Reeves, I'm happy to include, like Smart, as we said in our internal text chain, like Smart could be the 4th best guy on that team. Like, what does that say about the Lakers?
I don't know, man. It's been the Marcus Smart of old is not the guy that I think that's basically where I stand here. Is like, I just think it's sad that Smart at this point is just like a prayer from LA to try and keep them relevant. Really, like, it's sad that Marcus his body is broken down. Like, to be clear, the Celtics got the best years of Marcus Smart you could have probably asked for. He gave him everything he possibly. This is why he's going to get a standing ovation. Like, he might get booed as like a playful thing, like if he does something, but at the end of the day, it's going to be a lot of like, hey, like, look at. It's going to be a lot of like reminiscing about all the good times of Marcus Smart. It's a weird one, right? It's weird that there's going to be a standing ovation for a guy in a Lakers jersey, but there's definitely going to be like Marcus. I remember that trade, like that morning, waking up with all these text messages being like, dude, what the hell did the Celtics do last night? They traded Smart in the middle of the night, even though we thought it was Brogdon going to the Clippers and like everything was going to work out perfectly. They were going to have Smart and Porzingis on the same team. It's really, to me, Barrett, just like kind of sad, like the way his career's ended up, because he gave the organization so much at a time in which they were rebuilding. Like, he was the face of the new era of the Celtics with Brad Stevens. They bring him in.
Are we still talking about Marcus Smart or Isaiah Thomas?
I mean, it's similar, right? Because like Isaiah being, a spark plug offensively was amazing, but like Smart was like the bridge to KG, like that toughness, that give a shit, that that versatility defensively. Like you guys all remember when Smart and him had the little dap up on the floor because they both went after a loose ball on the floor, and KG was like, yeah, I like that. That's great. Like that. There was connective tissue. You could draw the line from like Smart to KG, and that was valuable to me. So to me, it's like just sad that we're here, that Smart's like, kind of just not an impact player really anymore, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, I think part of it too for me is we've seen so many guys in recent Boston sports history leave, go to different markets, and win championships, right? I mean, obviously the greatest example is Brady. Brady was still at the peak of his powers, even if he didn't have a great 2019 season. But even more recently, Brad Marchand goes to Florida, and I was significantly more upset about that than this situation because Marchand was still good. He ended up being a huge contributor to a Florida team that, let's not forget, ruined the Bruins. They beat the Bruins when the Bruins were the best team in NHL history from a points and record perspective. I'm not saying they were actually the best team in NHL history, but they had a 3-1 lead. They blew it. Marchand in the next year gets sucker punched by Sam Bennett. And that team breaks down the Bruins to the point where the Bruins last year at the trading deadline were selling. Marchand wanted to go there, and they sent him to the place that he wanted to go. And he just wins the cup, and he signs this long-term extension there, which I'm sure like the back years won't be great, but I'm sure they'll figure that situation out.
That contract.
Yeah. Mookie Betts gets traded, of course. The one that probably irritates people the second most outside of the Brady situation. He wins, and Mookie's having a terrible season from a hitting perspective this year, but he's won 2 World Series. I mean, since he's been traded there, from like a value perspective, from a wins above replacement perspective, he's been a top 10 guy in the game. So you missed out on his prime years, right? Brady still had something left in the tank, and Marchand won another cup. With Marcus Smart, you won the championship after the guy left. Like, you had your best team since the 2008 Celtics after Marcus Smart left. When Marcus Smart was traded, the Celtics, they didn't have any non-shooters. You had Drew Holiday, you had Derek White, right? I mean, I know that Cornette at that point was essentially the third big, but everybody could shoot. The team got better. And this is not meant to be this huge indictment on Smart, but Smart's at the point in his career where I don't even know how much he can give the Lakers. Like, and I know some of the games he was sitting out because the team decided to, but he's had all these random injuries. I know a lot of it's been like awkward, like weird stuff, like hand injuries, right? Which shouldn't be really reoccurring. But if you just look at, and I'm not trying to body shame here, you look at his body composition, he doesn't really look the same as he did just 3-4 years ago, right? So I think what the Celtics did, and credit to Brad and company when they made the move in the front office, they said, all right, we want to be different on offense. We want to beat switches. Porzingis provides that to us. And secondarily, I thought they actually nailed it where they're like, almost like a running back getting closer to the end, like he's approaching 30. Let's move off him now. We don't think there's a lot left. I just don't believe there's a lot left with Smart. I hope I'm wrong. Like, I don't want him to, although he's on the Lakers, I don't want the end of his career to just stink. But I don't know. It didn't even really register with me. I'm like, oh, yeah, he went to the Lakers. Great. I mean, the Lakers aren't that good from my perspective, at least.
Smart is, just because I'm trying to remember, he's 31 years old. You know, obviously, if he stays healthy enough, he's got another handful of years in him. We'll see. Like you said, recent time in Memphis would suggest that there aren't a lot of good years left, given what has been going on. But, you know, root for him for all the reasons that we've already talked about. He does seem like, I know this doesn't happen as often in professional sports anymore. Maybe it didn't always, happen. It just feels like something that was talked about so often that it felt like it happened frequently. But he seems like your quintessential one-day contract, retire as a Celtics, storybook ending kind of thing when that time comes. But does he win with the Lakers in the meantime? I don't see it. Has nothing to do with Marcus Smart. It's like you brought up before, Barrett. I just don't think the Lakers are all that good. Better than the Celtics, I realize, and certainly top-heavy. And I didn't mention DeAndre Ayton before, and that's obviously a huge get for a team that desperately needed some help in the front court. But as far as that, just the depth and the competitiveness of the Western Conference, I mean, I think LeBron's days winning, when I say winning, I mean championships, are over. And so it's just a function of sort of that, assuming LeBron is still there, and I don't think he's going anywhere. I think that is the most nonsense offseason story that we've had so far. But it's this bridge to Luka now, and what comes next for the Lakers and who they surround him with ultimately.
Yeah, and you just look at the rest of the West. A team like the Clippers in their own city, the Clippers are better than them, right? Will they even be better than the San Antonio Spurs this year as Wemby comes back from the injury? They have De'Aaron Fox, who got his surgery at the end of the season as well. They drafted Harper. Castle's the rookie of the year. Yep. Wemby could be in the MVP conversation. I mean, last year he was running away with the defensive player of the year if it wasn't for that. So, I mean, you just look at the teams in the West. I mean, I mentioned the Clippers, who are the better older team. You have young teams like San Antonio coming up on its way. You have those three teams that we alluded to off the top. I mean, there's a real good chance the Lakers aren't even a top 6 seed. And LeBron was relatively healthy last year. Is that going to continue? Now, I guess you could say, on the flip side of that, Luka is going to be healthier. The Western Conference is absolutely loaded right now. So it's just going to be tough for them to find their way out of it. And the one other thing I'd say is just from a Celtics perspective in all this, they got draft picks back in the Smart trade. The Grizzlies had to attach an asset to trade Marcus Smart, and then the Wizards bought him out. That's what's happened since he left the Celtics. Like, even if Porzingis, like, the injuries killed the Celtics in the playoffs and whatever the weird, bizarre illness he had last year. And 2 years ago, he barely played in the postseason, had that epic game 1 against Dallas, we all remember. But you got the better player, and they gave up assets for Smart. Like, it is a terrible deal for Memphis.
Let's take a quick break, tell you about our good friends over at PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to everyone. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash. You heard me right. 2,000x. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks.
Flex play, baby. Changed my life. Changed Adam's life, as he's currently finding out, having fun with PrizePicks. And it could change your life, because you only need to hit 2 out of 3 to get some money in your pocket, in your wallet, or whatever you wanted to call it, in terms of your inbox on PrizePicks, whether it's your website or it's the app itself, right? And Kaufman, very sad. Summer League's over. No longer can do the Summer League sickos, which I was really enjoying. The Summer League sicko lineups that we were putting out there, but we're gonna go to baseball for the first time in 2025, and we're gonna visit an old friend to start things off, Kyle Schwarber, everybody's favorite guy that got away. Well, they're taking on the Yankees this weekend. What's up?
Kyle from Waltham.
Yeah, dude, the best. I loved it. And it actually stuck. It was very, very good. Schwarber playing at Yankee Stadium, notoriously easy for left-handed hitters. Schwarber, a lefty. We're going more than 0.5 home runs versus the Yankees on Friday night. We'll go to the Sox for the second leg of this particular lineup. Narvaez, to me, and Barrett, who we had on earlier, we talked a little bit about a pre-show, and a great stat. Narvaez way better at home for the Red Sox than he is on the road. He's over 300 at home. So with that in mind, we're going to do Narvaez more than 0.5 hits versus the Dodgers. And then our last one, we'll keep it, again, somewhat local here. We're going to go Matt Chapman against the Mets. More than 5.5 fantasy score. So if you don't know what that is, just a little quick heads up. Like, depending what you do in the game will get you a certain amount of points, right? So you hit a single, 3 points. Double, 5 points. Walk, 2 points. You get the idea, right? You add all that up, that's the fantasy score. Matt Chapman, for what it's worth, last 5 games, averaging 14 fantasy points per game. So that's just to tell you, 5.5 seems like a lock. So just to tell you one more time, Schwarber, more than a half a home run. Narvaez, more than half a hit. Matt Chapman, more than 5.5 fantasy score. Flex play, Kaufman. If I hit all 3, 4.5x. Love it. Love those. And then if you go 2 out of 3, still 1x. That's still a win in my book. Again, PrizePicks, only one doing that. Getting your money couldn't have been any easier either. I use Venmo. It's the easiest way to do it. Goes right in your account. Super simple, super easy. Kaufman, even you can do it.
And in as little as 15 minutes, you just watch that money roll on in. PrizePicks, so many different ways, obviously, to collect after that initial deposit. And then from there, just tail it. Really, that's what I've been doing. Download the app today. Go to PrizePicks, download that app, the code CLNS. You get $50 instantly after playing your first $5 lineup. Again, download the PrizePicks app. Go do it right now. Well, after you listen to this show. The promo code CLNS. You get $50 instantly after playing your first lineup of only $5. PrizePicks. Run your game. Let's get back to the show. Barrett, now, this is not a Lakers podcast. It is a Celtics podcast. Obviously, we drew that line there with Marcus Smart, who is a member of LA now, as we know. But
the only guy that could get me to talk about the Lakers in July is Marcus Smart.
Yeah, very fair. Very fair. But as far as the Celtics go, Barrett, of course, employee of the Ringer. A couple of your colleagues over there, you had Zach Lowe and Michael Pina. They did a podcast recently, and they were putting together, Pina specifically, his tiers in the Eastern Conference. And I pulled it up here, and I'll bring up, we don't need to dissect all this, but I will bring up how he ranked everybody and what he called them. In the first tier, they can plausibly make the NBA Finals. I think most people would agree with these teams. Cavaliers, Magic, Knicks, in that order. Just outside that group, the second tier, the People's Champion, the Hawks. I think it's fair to say they're a rung below. Third tier, middle class with a puncher's chance. Pistons, Heat, Sixers, Raptors. A couple of those teams I might consider dropping down to the fourth tier, the play-in bound team, the Bucks and the Bulls. Now, I would elevate the Bucks here. I've talked about that before on the show. You still got Giannis, and I know there's not a ton around him, but I'd at least bring them up to the third tier if I was, again, reordering this thing, but I'm not going to do that. Fifth tier, gap year from hell. Teams 11 and 12 in order. Pacers, Celtics. Then you have the sixth tier, happy to fail, i.e. tanking teams. Wizards, Hornets, Nets. Now, some people would put the Celtics in that category, say they're happy to fail, that this is a gap year. Not just a gap year from hell, but an embraced gap year at this point in time. We had Greeny on recently, and, he was ultimately, Ev, kind of talking me down. I was saying, like, there's a universe, if healthy, where, this team could win 40, 45 games. And he's gone, this team might win 25, 30 games, depending on how all this, like, there's a real spectrum to this team's success and what it looks like on the floor. But I think in terms of Barrett trying to define all that, you also have to continue to comprehend the question of, will any moves be made during the month of August, leading into the season, or are we just talking trade deadline stuff? If this is the roster going into the season, meaning Simons is still here, Niang's still here, so on, then sure. Like, obviously, there are some clear issues. This might be the worst front court composition in the entire NBA. This is hyperbole to some degree, but some G League teams might have a better looking front court than what the Celtics have right now. I'm just still not convinced, despite the generally honest Brad Stevens, what he has told us along the way. I feel like something's coming. Doesn't mean something substantial. Doesn't mean Jonathan Kuminga, much as I would love that with his situation going on with the Warriors. But I think something is coming that's going to alter what we see in the front court in this starting group right now.
You mean like in a positive direction? Like they're going to get an upgrade?
Yeah, and that doesn't mean a star. It doesn't mean, a fringe all-star. Doesn't, it could mean, someone who comes from like the Derek White background, meaning like not nearly as good in his previous spot, but Brad sees something there and he comes here and, he matures into obviously a much better player. Or taking a flyer on a young guy who, again, just has not quite shown promise. Now, you could argue, like, is it the Luka that the Celtics brought in? Is it Garza? Is it Bassi if they sign him? Like, guys who have been around the league, mildly journeyman for a handful of years that obviously haven't really had their opportunity. Maybe it is those guys, but I just don't see it.
Yeah, I've come to the conclusion that, first of all, I don't think they'll get anybody. I don't think they'll add another big. Maybe, like you said, Bassi. I just look at it as like, I know people are so excited about him. It's like, dude, he's entering his 25-year-old season. He should be dominating Summer League. And if you look at him, it's not like he has this big athletic profile or anything that you say, oh, yeah, he just was not getting enough playing time. Garza, now his threes have not gone down. He is a high-volume three-point shooter, though. So we are going to see a lot of threes from him. So maybe they find like, oh, this guy could be a stretch big going forward. Not that he'd ever be a starting center, but maybe he can be a stretch big for you going forward. I'm interested to see what they get out of Amari Williams, who's more of a screener / roller. I mean, crazy wingspan and all that. But I've come to the conclusion that, and I know that Celtics fans don't want to see this type of basketball, but it almost feels like the best thing for the Celtics is to just take your medicine for a year. And I actually think it's better for them to stink somehow and get into the lottery, right? Because when you think about this new world that they live in with the second apron situation, and by the way, it's another stacked draft class, and Dallas had no idea they were going to get the number one pick. I'm not saying that that's going to happen to the Celtics, but I just look at it from, if you think about, all right, well, Jaylen and Tatum are both on supermaxes. I think that's a question you're going to have to ask yourself after the season. Is it possible to continue to build a championship team around two guys with supermax contracts, considering how much that limits you in other places, which I know we've done rants on the CBA, but that's just the reality of the world they live in. So the way that you can do that is you need to hit on some young players, right? It's almost like we used to talk about this in the NFL, and the Patriots have it right now, right? The quarterback on the rookie contract, you can spend all this money. They need to hit on some young guys, right? And maybe Hugo Gonzalez is that guy. There were some good signs. There was some stuff that clearly, like, we got to see if the shot works out. But if somehow you can get into the lottery and find that next guy, like, I think about it, I'm not saying they're going to find this type of player. And the Spurs were winning when this was going on. But the Spurs, at the end of the Tim Duncan era, they ran into the Oklahoma City Thunder in the playoffs, and they weren't athletic enough. They ended up drafting, and they traded away their point guard at the time, George Hill, for the rights to get Kawhi Leonard. And Kawhi Leonard instantly made them a contender again, and they went to back-to-back, not instantly, but as a defensive player, you could throw him on LeBron, and they played in back-to-back finals. Now, I know that's a crazy comparison to bring up, but I just feel like they need to find somebody that's going to be on that rookie contract that's going to be a significant contributor. And look, maybe Shireman's that guy next year. Walsh looked better in Summer League. Didn't like some of the stuff. Like, I know Joe Mazzulla was pumped he got kicked out of a game, but I'm like, well, I kind of want to see him play. There was also another game where he had 7 fouls. It's not great. I know you get 10, but 7's a lot. But I don't know. That's my long-winded answer of just saying I would rather them stink next year, get into the lottery, and find somebody else that can be an asset for the next great Celtics team down the road here.
Well, look at some other teams in the league that have done, well, maybe will have done this. We'll leave it at that. Like, you have a team like the Spurs who get Dylan Harper and the Carter kid out of Arizona who looks like you could put him on the floor right now and he at least be able to guard his yard a little bit, right? So they get two high-impact players to go with Wemby. Now, it's a little different there, obviously. Think about the Sixers. They have these two ginormous contracts with Paul George and Joel Embiid. Now, again, different situation where they end up with a top 3 draft pick and get VJ Edgecombe. Like, it's like there is value in like just getting a bite at the apple, right? Like, nobody thought Dallas was going to get, well, unless you're like conspiracy theorist, like nobody thought Dallas was going to get the overall pick and end up with Cooper Flag. But if you ended up getting into the top 3 and getting a Boozer, DeBanza, whatever, like that completely changes your outlook. And when you like, I believe Bobby Manning had on Bobby Marks during Summer League on the Garden Report. I think
Bobby's everywhere.
They talked about building around 2 max guys and if you can do it or not. And the idea is, you know, you definitely can. I mean, there's definitely a way, but as Barrett said, like, you have to nail some of these things. And this year should be about prioritizing development. Like, we know what Jaylen's going to be. We know we'll see as a lead dog what it looks like, but we know what Jaylen is. We know what Derek White is. And according to Brad Stevens, Peyton Pritchard is also a part of this core. So you have a lot of other spots to fill. And it looks like to me, we talk about this all the time, Kaufman, about how like Brad tells you like what he's going to do if you're just paying attention. And part of me feels like they are shifting. The Celtics are shifting the way they're going to play a little bit. Amari Williams is a little key into that, but their interest in Ben Simmons, I think, is another like a little window into this. In Hugo Gonzalez, drafting him is another like little window into this. I do think they're thinking about, you know, passing, cutting, moving out the basketball, and how they can generate that kind of stuff. Because like that's what Amari Williams is really good at, and it like is very evident when you watch him play. Like, he has great vision for a guy at 7 feet. For all of the problems that Ben Simmons brings to the table, totally get it. But you cannot deny the guy is an unbelievable all-world passer and can switch defensively, right? Like, we all know he can do that kind of stuff. So as you look at how Boston's going to change, like, Barrett, I do think like their interest in certain guys might be a signal of them changing the guard a little bit. And this year could bring like, okay, let's see what like Jordan Walsh can do like a little bit more without the basketball in his hands. Like, can he cut? Can he move? Can he do all that stuff? I think it's a signal to everybody like, okay, we are resetting. We're going to see what we got here, 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 and here. But like, this is also maybe Joe and Brad acknowledging that we have to change the way we do things. Because like, if they're bringing Ben Simmons in here, obviously he ain't taking threes, and their offenses look different because he's way different than anybody else that they have on the roster right now.
Yeah, and I would say this too, Jaylen coming back from a knee situation, I'd be very careful with him, right? And if there's a time where, say, Jaylen and Derek White's been an Ironman, knock on wood, but if one of those guys has to miss 2 to 3 weeks, the season could completely fall apart, right? I mean, this team is not a team that goes on a lot of 3-game losing streaks. You go on a West Coast road trip, that could happen just with your regular core. But imagine if one of those top tier playmakers / scorers for you and Derek White or Jaylen Brown goes down. The other thing that I'm fascinated by is just, I think we can all agree that Jason Tatum's already played on the best team that he's ever going to play on. They're not going to have a better version of the 2023-2024 Celtics. I'm talking from a roster now. He can be better. He can be better than he was during. I'm not criticizing his run. I thought it was underrated, but he can become a better player. But I don't think with having Drew Holiday, Chris Porzingis, Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Al Horford, I don't think they're going to have a roster that is that good again. So I'm interested to see, and this is going to be post Achilles. You have this group of sort of the getting to the end, not getting it to the end of the prime, but established MVP type guys when we're talking about Giannis and Nikola Jokic, who I think most people still agree are 2 of the best 3 players in the league. Then you have Shea, who is slightly younger than Tatum, who just won everything, finals MVP, scoring champ, regular season MVP. He's already arrived. Then you have this young group of Anthony Edwards in Minnesota. You have Wemby, and then, I mean, I guess we can, for the sake of this conversation, because he's a local guy, Cooper Flagg in Dallas, right, from Maine. So you have this group of older guys that are slightly older than Tatum that I think right now are better than Tatum, and Giannis and Jokic. You have Shea, who just had a better season than Tatum, and you have all these young guys. So for years, and I think everybody agrees, Tatum for the past 4 or 5 years, or at least the past 3, has been a top 5 player in the game. He's been first team All-NBA. When Tatum comes back, where is he? Does he get passed by some of these guys? Now, my hope is that doesn't happen. I think he'll have to adjust some of the things in his game. But where is Tatum coming back to this roster? Is Tatum still a top 5 guy? Is he pressing for top 3? Or is he now somewhere between like the 6th and the 10th best player?
I mean, or worse, right? 10 and 15. I think part of it, and I'm not saying I believe that. I think that I'm hoping between medical advances, what players have learned from players that have already gone through this, age, obviously, being on his side and just being able to, kind of Wolverine Deadpool the thing, right? Just regenerate at a faster rate than like when Kobe had this injury, or even when Durant had this injury a few years later in his career. I think there's a benefit to being in your mid to late 20s, obviously, but we don't know. And we've talked about this. This is not new. This is not new to this show or anyone else. We don't know what Jason Tatum is going to look like when he returns from this, or even if he returns to form, and you hate to even put the if on it, but if he returns to form, how long will that take? Are we talking about a lost season next year? He doesn't play at all, and then the following year is lost for a different reason. You have him, but it's that recovery year, and so you're a couple of years out from even hoping that you look the way you just looked before he did go down. And at that point, as Barrett, you've alluded to, what's the roster look like? I think that, you might be right that you're not going to have as well-rounded, deep, veteran kind of roster as what they had during their championship year going forward. I think large part of that is the CBA, and, at least how things look with the CBA for the foreseeable future. Maybe if, in 5-6 years, the thing gets renegotiated and it looks different, then that's another thing to consider at that time. But yeah, I mean, right now the whole league is going to start to be hamstrung by just the ramifications of owner after owner not wanting to deal with the certain numbers of repeater taxes, or getting into the second apron, how many times are you going to live there, and all of that stuff. It's just we're all new to that right now. We're kind of scratching that surface at the moment. I just think it's where I don't envy this front office is that this Tatum X factor is so huge that it makes the future wildly unpredictable. And I don't know how you adjust to that in the here and now, short of openly tanking and saying we're just going to get the best possible draft position that we can. But look how many teams thought they were going to be in the mix for Cooper Flagg, and then goes to a team that had less than a 2% chance of getting him.
Yeah, it's tough because it brings into the conversation Jaylen too, because I think everybody expects Jaylen as the lead guy to want to prove everybody wrong, right? I mean, he's already talked about, not prove everybody wrong, but talking about the fact that he's played differently than most guys of his stature in the league, which I do agree with to some sense. But is there a situation that presents itself that you just can't pass up on, right? Like Zach Lowe a couple of months ago brought up like the Sacramento example. If Sacramento just gets like wild, I think it was Zach Lowe that brought it up, but say Sacramento's in this position even after next year, right? You play the season out, the Celtics, wherever they end up, and Sacramento's like, well, we don't really have a star. And right now they don't have any like really good young players either. And they're just like, we're going to give you everything we can for Jaylen. Like, I think the Celtics have to monitor all situations. Now, I love Jaylen and Jason Tatum to finish their careers together and continue to keep building this thing. But I just think about the flexibility and the pliability you have to have in this new salary cap world, what they're going to be able to do. I mean, I think that also I would hate to trade Derek White. I think you could trade Derek White to any team and get a good package in return. I wouldn't want to do that, but they're in a very difficult situation on how to rebuild this thing going forward. So I think you have to monitor every situation. And the other thing that I would say is this. Now that you've won a championship and now that Tatum is like a guy in the league, right? Like he was talking to Damian Lillard, right? He's a guy in the league. The next disgruntled star, like, are the Celtics now a destination to say, oh, yeah, like I can go play with Tatum? So I feel like every time I doubt they can do something, they have found a way to do it and put better players around Tatum. So maybe they'll find it. It's just, man, like that night changed
But again,
everything.
it's at what cost, right? Like Damian Lillard clearly wasn't going to come here for the veterans minimum, nor maybe anywhere else, especially when he got the bag back in Portland. I think, not to cut you off, but like to, sort of, I guess, advance the conversation. Ev, I'll ask both of you this, but I'll start with you. Jaylen Brown, we keep bringing up Jaylen Brown and his desire to, I know not specifically his words, but as you said, Barrett, to prove himself, to show that he can be an alpha, that he can be, that number one on a good team. Well, what if this Celtics team goes out and, I don't know, play-in team, right? Like is competitive and maybe even gets itself, into the postseason to some degree, but obviously isn't a great team, isn't a contending team, but isn't on the other end where it's a tanking team. And Brown, as we discussed with Jared Weiss last week, is, has a really strong season, maybe even a career year. Does he say, do we worry as Celtics fans? Do we worry about Tatum coming back and Brown saying, boy, that felt pretty good. I think I'd like to go somewhere else. I don't want to keep living in this guy's shadow, or even if you don't want to call it that, 1A, 1B working alongside him. I want to go have my team.
I mean, it's possible. I don't know Jaylen Brown personally. Like, I can't speak for that. But I would say, like, every step along the way, those two guys have been like, no, we want to play together. We want to play together. We want to play together. So, like, I can't sit here and say, well, he would probably want to go somewhere else, when at every opportunity that they've had, they've said, we want to play together. We won a lot of games together. We want to keep this thing going. Again, is it possible? Sure. Absolutely. But I do think that those two guys, especially Jaylen, by the way, like Jaylen openly talks about his importance to the Celtics and like the history of the Celtics and why the Celtics are, iconic in NBA history. Like, I think he understands his place and all that. And you don't get that anywhere else, like other than LA, right? Other than the Lakers, no other team in the NBA history can compare to the legacy of the Boston Celtics. And I think of all the players on the team, including Jason Tatum, I don't think anybody understands that better than Jaylen Brown. I don't. I think
you could be a legend somewhere else. I'm not saying a Celtics caliber legend or a Lakers caliber legend, but you could be a Knicks legend. You can be a Sixers legend. Like these
Pelicans.
Way different. It's definitely and like this is a guy that like all the time talks about, especially during Celtic City, like trying to live up to the Bill Russell standard of trying to make an impact socially, off the court, on the court, all that stuff. I do think Jaylen cares about all those things. And I don't think he gets that kind of play in any other city, maybe New York, maybe LA, but Boston is top of the top, and I think he understands his place in that. Again, better than literally every other Celtic on the roster currently.
Yeah, and look, I was not like advocating for trading Jaylen. I'm just saying like you got to keep your ears open when it comes to that type of stuff.
Mind.
Just because if some team gets super desperate, like the Nets were super desperate when they made the KG Pierce trade, right? Like if a team because now, and the boss Bill Simmons has talked about this, we now have bad GMs again. Like we now have bad owners and stupid. Like look at the Suns right now. That team is an absolute dumpster fire. So we now have that back in the NBA where it felt like we were sort of getting away for it. So that was my point. Is just like you got to listen if the Kings or somebody crazy makes an offer. The one other thing that I mentioned with Jaylen, and I agree with Valenti, he's spending his summer this year here, which he hasn't really done in the past, I think. And he means a ton to the city. He means a ton to the organization. He's sort of been the leader of the team. So I totally understand all those things. The one question I have is Jaylen coming off, as I said, the meniscus situation. I do wonder how he's going to age for a couple of reasons, right? Like Jaylen's shooting was poor last year, and his 2-point shooting, which had been elite the previous season, went from 57% down to 51-ish or 53-ish, whatever it was. It was a significant drop-off. So my point with that is just, was that because he didn't have lift? And I think the playoffs, that was part of it. He was inconsistent, didn't have the lift on his jump shot. But if you look at what's Jaylen's best skill, it's that he's one of the best athletes in a league of the best athletes in the world. His game is so based on, and this isn't meant to be an indictment, it's his athleticism, it's his explosion, right? That's what makes Jaylen an unbelievable player in this league. So I just wonder, like, you think about guys that have really aged well in this league, and I'm not saying he can't improve in other elements, but he's not the best playmaker. He's not the best ball handler. He's not the best stand-still shooter, right? And that I'm just pointing those things out to say, I wonder, like, this is the first knee thing. Does another thing come up, right? We saw this with Dwayne Wade later on in his career, the end of his Heat tenure or the end of the LeBron tenure with the Heat. Remember that final season? It's like Dwayne Wade's dealing with injuries all the time. And that's part of the reason, like, LeBron wanted to go back to Cleveland. LeBron left for a better situation. He went to go play with Kyrie, and he could trade for Kevin Love. That's why he left. He saw Kyrie as a younger version, not similar players, but of Dwayne Wade. Number 2 guy that was better for him at that particular point in time. So I just wonder about Jaylen and how he ages as a player, just based on so much of his game is based on his raw athleticism and raw explosion. And he's got so much better. He's gotten so much better. He's been a Finals MVP. He's improved so many ways throughout his NBA career. But I just don't know if that profile is as a guy that ages well until it's, let's say, his mid-30s.
Yeah, I think it's all fair. Go ahead, F.
I was, it's one of these things with Jaylen that, like, I am excited for this, and it's going to be real interesting without Kristaps Porzingis, because Porzingis was such a hub for, like, Jaylen Brown offense. The two of them had just incredible synergy. What this looks like, but I love having Jaylen around just as a guy to, like, root for. I have a hard time just trying to figure out. And I know some people are like, in the trading Jaylen is the best thing for this franchise. And I'm like, I get that. I totally understand. And it's a valid point, but it's like, I just like watching Jaylen Brown. I prefer to do it this way. But this
people
next iteration,
understand when they make those comments, it has nothing to do with Jaylen Brown.
Yeah.
It's not about Jaylen the person. It's not even about Jaylen the player. It's about the asset.
But again, I'm selfishly, like, I'd rather just watch Jaylen Brown play basketball for the Celtics than any other team. But I do get some of the stuff behind it. I do want to get into this Ben Simmons thing a little bit, because that's like the only roster move other than JD Davison. Should we pour one out for JD Davison real quick?
I mean, he opened up the roster spot, so you can pour him out for that. Look, G League MVP, and up and down, and we've seen what he is in the Celtics uniform, obviously, and apparently the organization felt that's all he was going to be. So, onward and upward. I hope he has a successful career. And what else is there to say about JD Davison this time?
Well, the thing is, I thought, sorry, I was looking something up real quick, but it was just one of these things where with JD, he was just always a roster crunch guy. And for me, like, he was never consistent shooting the basketball. He's gotten better at a lot of things in the G League, but not at the NBA level. And maybe somewhere else with more playing time, he'll be able to carve out a place, but like look at the guard depth on Boston now. It's like Derek White, Payton Pritchard, and then like maybe Baylor Sharman. We'll see. Walsh is more of a wing. If I had to call Walsh, Simons is the guard, but like as we've said with Jared Weiss, like there's a reason why the Simons Niang stuff they haven't had a press conference for it yet because they're probably still trying to trade those guys. Like especially if Simons is on the roster, like obviously they're gonna have some serious depth issues, not only in the front court, but it looks like in the back court too. But it's like for JD, like I saw the vision of why you would take a guy like that, like Jordan Walsh, a similar swing, a guy that had high pedigree in high school and was in a weird situation in college, maybe not the best one for them, and maybe giving them a better opportunity somewhere else with a much more open court. Maybe they'll thrive. I will say Davison made like a lot of strides like as a playmaker, but again, not at the NBA level. Like there's a difference between the G League and the NBA, but it does open up a spot for Ben Simmons. Either of you anti Ben Simmons, bringing him in to take a look at him? Because I only see upside with that, frankly.
Go ahead, Barrett.
Yeah, it's fine if you want to bring. I can't believe this is a guy that used to be an All NBAer. He averaged 16, 8, and 8 one season. He was in the running for the Defensive Player of the Year. He was obviously the number 1 pick in the draft. And it feels like one moment against Atlanta completely ruined his career, where he was afraid to take that layup. Remember that whole thing?
Mm-hmm.
And since then, he's never shot. I was looking at this the other day. He's taken more than 6 shots per game, or he hasn't taken more than 6 shots per game since the 2020-2021 season. That's a long time ago, right? And for a guy that used to be there was an argument at one point, who do you build around? Would you rather build around Simmons or Embiid? Like, that was a legitimate question that people were having. Like, he was getting Giannis comparisons, right? So at this point, he's a guy that on a championship level team or a team that's trying to compete for a championship, he's not going to be part of your rotation. We saw it with the Clippers last year, right? He goes to the Clippers, he does some nice things, but he's not part of their real playoff rotation. I wouldn't mind taking a look at him. Like, all right, he can handle the ball. He's still a good passer. It's just the guy's completely afraid to shoot. If anybody's going to get him to shoot, it would be Missoula, right? Like, Missoula would probably pull him if he's not taking wide open shots. I don't mind. In a year that Tatum's not playing, I mean, he can push the basketball in transition. I mean, he's going to cost you, a league minimum? Like, if you want to bring him in for a league minimum, it doesn't bother me at all to say, all right, maybe we find something and, hey, take a look at him for a year. And if he looks like somebody we want to keep around when Tatum comes back, we'll do that. So I have no issue with it whatsoever. I wonder about, like, when you get into tough situations, like, can he be part of the factor? Because it seems like he's been soft when it comes to any sort of criticism long term. But that's not what this is about. This is, hey, bring in a guy that has been traveling around different teams over the past few years and see what he looks like. I don't mind it.
Yeah, I mean, Adam Taylor wrote a long article about this and why the fit makes more sense than you would think. As articles get teased that way. It's on Celtics blog. People can read it, check it out. There are a lot of examples and, video highlights and some of the things that these guys here have acknowledged already. I just think, he falls so perfectly into the category of low risk, high reward, right? He's a guy that if he came in, theoretically could help you. And if he doesn't, who cares? You cut bait, you pay him nothing. That's to say that he is open to coming in at the vet minimum, as Barrett brought up, or something close to it. I mean, let's remember the situation the Celtics are in. They only have so much money to spend, obviously. But sure, take the flyer. The guy I think still has the ability defensively more than anything else. Again, you're not bringing him in for his shooting ability, maybe to some degree his playmaking or some element of rebounding, but it's more the defense, and it's more even though he's in a downswing, maybe a career downswing.
Small ball 5.
Small ball 5, depth off the bench, veteran presence, guy who's, at least experienced in the league, approaching 30, all that stuff. And there have been some injuries along the way, but it's no harm, no foul, right? I mean, that's how I look at a guy like Ben Simmons, especially if ever, and this is more of a general statement, Simmons or Bassey or whoever in that front court, or keeping Simons for a little while, or some of these younger guys, JD Davison, if they had elected to keep him around, Missoula opting to maneuver his strategy versus what it's been in recent years when the roster construction was so different. it's a year of experimentation because there are no expectations for this team to do anything good. If nothing else, the expectations are the opposite. So play around, screw around, see what you have, see who's worth keeping. I mean, it's not the same thing as I was doing a show yesterday and we were talking about the Cleveland Browns, and like Andrew Berry, the general manager, had talked yesterday at training camp about how there's a very real scenario where that team opens the season, breaks camp with 4 quarterbacks on the active roster of a 53-man roster, and how often does that happen right now? And stop, you don't like, Cleveland's not going anywhere. No one's confusing the Browns with a contender or even a team that is threatening to make a playoff, push. And so why have Joe Flacco? Why have Kenny Pickett? Live your season with Shedeur Sanders, with Dylan Gabriel. You got 2 first-round picks coming up in 2026. Find out if you need the quarterback then or if you have one now. Sort of where the Celtics are, right? Find out what you've got in the depth in some of these young guys, some of these cheaper guys. If any of them can be your next, feels impossible to say, but Derek White, or on a smaller scale, a Luke Cornett, or you name it, see if you have anything on this roster among some of these cheap fits, before you're setting up to hopefully come the 26-27 season, be a contender again. But that's what this season should be all about. It's not chasing rings as we're accustomed to around here, just mentally. It should be about seeing what you have for the following year. And Ev, we've been talking about that on this show since the moment Tatum went down. We've been talking about it for months, but soon it's going to be time to put it into practice. And these moves that Brad Stevens has made so far, at least, Brad Stevens and company, certainly have us heading in that direction. So now we got to see what it looks like, Barrett.
Yeah, and you got to keep your options open. I think the Celtics are doing a good job with that, where they moved off the Drew Holiday contract as quickly as they did. They moved off Porzingis' contract, and they saved a bunch of money doing that. I don't know. I was surprised that Hauser hasn't been moved yet just because of the finances of it all. But at any point, you can trade Hauser for value, because any team in the league, especially any playoff team, I should say, is going to want one of the elite shooters in the league. Despite dealing with injuries last year, he still shot north of 40% from three-point territory. But, yeah, to me, you mentioned see what sticks. I really would just want to see the young guys. Like, all right, is Shireman part of the equation when Tatum comes back? His summer league, I thought he did a lot of things well, but then you look at the shooting, it's 8 of 39 from deep, 20.5%. He didn't shoot the 3 well last year when he was playing for the Celtics. Now, G League, that was a different story, but I wonder if some of that is because he's shooting them off the dribble, if he's just catch and shoot, because if he's a catch and shoot guy, all right, and then some of the other stuff looks better, right? Some of the playmaking, he is a good rebounder, so maybe some of that works. Jordan Walsh, we'll see. Like, if he doesn't provide something this season, then he probably doesn't have a future with the organization. And then Hugo Gonzalez, is he going to be part of – he's definitely going to be part of the equation going forward, but how quickly can they develop him? Because I know a lot of Celtics fans looked at it, they're like, wait, we drafted this guy that barely played? It's like, well, he played on basically the best team in the world that doesn't play in the NBA. He plays on the best club in the world in Real Madrid. They're not just going to say – they have a bunch of guys that played in the NBA. They're not just going to say, hey, here's minutes. But I like he's got the second biggest hands measured at the combine. It was insane. The dude that Portland drafted, how tall is that guy? Like 7'1"? Yeah, he's 7'1". This guy's got bigger hands than that dude. And so there's a lot of stuff you like about him. You can tell like he's still sort of learning how to, in summer league, he's still sort of learning how to fit in. He had a weird game where he hit 3 threes and then he was 1 of 5 from the free throw line. So there's like definitely a lot of talent there, but those are the things that I think we should be watching for. Like, is he going to be part of the core group going forward? That's the hope when you draft him in the first round. But him and Shireman and Walsh, and we'll see with Amari Williams, those are the guys that I think you got to find out, like, hey, how quickly can we develop these guys? How good are they going to be? Can they at least be role players going forward?
It's good, Eb. The Celtics have a big hands guy. The Patriots have a small arms guy. We're hitting it all.
Oh man, Boston cares about length. Apparently, it's all the rage. I mean, I get it. Trust me. You want to?
Any parting thoughts from you?
Me? Hopeful that we have a little bit of break in this heat. That's really all I got. You know, it's been hot as hell everywhere in Massachusetts. I mean, again, I live on the other side of the state, so it's a little bit different down here. But even down here, it's like 90 every day. It's like, holy cow! Playing golf's been just a whole round of sweat and just gross sweat every time I go out there and play. It's just like I can't get, and you can't get by. You can't get. It's just it was funny because it rained every day I went golfing, and now it's just hot as hell every day I go golfing. It's just no like perfect day, not yet at least.
Speaking of golf, I guess my parting thought will be if you plan to watch Happy Gilmore 2 on Netflix, don't be me. And what I mean by that is temper expectations. Just a little bit but going in. Yeah, it doesn't mean it's bad. Just.
So it's not as good as F1 is what you're telling me? Okay, got it.
Yeah, I mean, go in with a reasonable view of what this movie should be 30 years after the original, with a buttload of cameos, as you've probably heard or read about, or just watched the trailer and all of that. But for nostalgia purposes, sure, worth the watch. I guess I'll leave it there. Yeah. All right, for Brian Barrett, for Evan Valenti, I'm Adam Kaufman, a bearded Brian Barrett, who you can find on Twitter at It's Brian Barrett. He, of course, hosts the Off the Pike podcast for The Ringer, Spotify. He, actively is talking all the Boston sports, so make sure you check him out there. Been on a Red Sox kick, Patriots kick. I did some Pats talk with him recently. Nice to scratch the itch, and reminder that football truly is here. Training camp is open. If you're a fan, get on out there while you can. Boys, thank you so much.
Thank you, Kaufman. Just make sure that people know that CLNS is at Pat's camp all the time, and Tyler Kyles and Mike Kadlick are just crushing it out there. And Amit's out there too. Shout out Amit. It's an amazing job.
Check out the Pats coverage on the CLNS YouTube page. Check out Celtics coverage, including this podcast, on the CLNS All Access page on the YouTube page, and get this show wherever you get your podcasts. So with that, believe it or not, Ev, the next show be in August. Talk to you later.